Do we have a caller? Looks like yes, we do. So KRFP, you're on the air.
Hi. I was wondering if Planned Parenthood were to open an office in Moscow, if you would support it. Thank you.
That'll go to Dan Carscallen first.
I don't have any reason to have anything against Planned Parenthood moving into Moscow. But, the services they offer, what it is, I know there's some people that have problems with it, but, people have to make their choices and live with them.
That was Dan Carscallen, now John Freeland.
Yeah, I don't think that Planned Parenthood is planning on opening up a place here in Moscow. From what I've heard, they're fixing up the place in Pullman, which does provide health care and not abortions. There are no abortions that occur in Pullman. And we've got lots of actually great places here in the community that support women's health care and are great resources. And I would be happy. I'm not going to comment on the whole abortion, pro-life, pro-choice issue, but any sort of women's health care that can help women, I'm not in opposition to.
All right, that was John Freeland. Phone number 892-9200. The next question will go to John Freeland first. What's your opinion on extending the city's solid waste contract with Latah Sanitation by 12 years to the year 2035, which just happened? I think they have to have a public hearing on that, don't they?
Yeah.
Okay. It's not a done deal, but it's in the cards. So, what's your opinion on that?
Well, I thought it was a little bit premature, possibly. At the same time that we had the big mistake with the new recycling carts, that whole mess that I'm sure most of you have heard about. To do that at the same time, it just seemed a little bit. People were telling me it seemed a little bit corrupt, and might need to open up the process a little bit and see if there was anybody else possibly out there who was interested. That was just what was suggested to me by multiple people. But obviously I have nothing against Latah Sanitation. I think they do a great job overall. There have just been some mistakes that have been made, and I think that we just need to be careful in terms of how we're going about city government. We need to be as open as possible in terms of spending our money and making sure that things are done efficiently and properly.
All right, and that was John Freeland, and now we'll go to Dan Carscallen on that.
Well, I think that what it does is it gives the city a sense of security as far as, it's somebody that we've worked with in the past. We have opened it up in the past several times, and, there really just isn't anybody else out there that wants to play at that level. And, we're also working with someone that contracts with the county, and that kind of gives an economy of scale for that outfit, for Latah Sanitation to continue to work with us. And it offers them a little security too, I guess. But my opinion was, let's get that extension out there a lot longer, so it's just something that the citizens don't have to worry about in the future. There of course are rate increases programmed throughout, but sometimes we don't take those increases. There's been times here in the recent past where we came up against it and saw that, well, we don't need to. We're still affording it at the level we're charging. So there'll be a few more times here in the future. Hopefully that happens as well.
All right, that was Dan Carscallen, KRFP call-in candidates forum with Dan Carscallen and John Freeland. Phone number 892-9200. The next question will go to Dan Carscallen first. Let's see. Any opinions on the various standards approved for curbside recycling in the city, the program that's going to start next month, concerning, say, costs, roll cart sizes, inclusion of apartment complexes, moving to twice per week, not collecting glass, anything? Any comments you want to make about that program?
Well, it's going to be every other week, not twice a week.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and I do think that the people that are really probably going to do it are the people that we're adding to it, and that's the students at the U of I have a different level of, I'll say awareness, I guess, and a sense of environmentalism that hopefully they'll take care to make sure that they get things sorted right with that being added to their system. You know, the whole thing is going to single stream was to make it easier for folks. Of course, keeping glass out makes it a little harder for some. I prefer my beer in a glass bottle as opposed to a can, so I'm going to have to take mine to a dump site. But we've set up a couple other collection sites for glass, so that helps. That makes that a little more convenient. But I think that's the big thing is we wanted to make it more convenient for folks, so we'd get more participation, which therefore makes our weight-based garbage fees that hopefully will lower that because we won't have as much garbage in the system.
All right, that was Dan Carscallen. Now John Freeland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the past, I think some of you may have heard me talking about how, I hope that the whole program works out with, I know a lot of students on campus who have been recycling, who take their recyclable goods to the recycling center, as everyone is able to do. And I'm just hoping that, this program does turn out to be cost efficient. It doesn't create more problems on top of the money that we've already spent in terms of cross-contamination with not much more effect. I'm really hoping that we're able to get people educated on the benefits of recycling, people who haven't been, and who will now have access to recycle who didn't before. So keeping our fingers crossed. We want to be green. We want to make sure that we're, recycling and reducing the amount of resources that we're using so that they are there for future generations.
All right, we're winding down. We might go a couple minutes late because we started a couple minutes late, but this is towards the end of the KRFP Candidates Forums. We have Dan Carscallen and John Freeland in the studios. That was just John Freeland who you heard. Phone number is 892-9200. The next question will go to John Freeland first. When deciding whether to build a pedestrian-only or a vehicular bridge over Paradise Creek at 3rd Street near Mountain View, how much consideration should be given to neighborhood residents as opposed to city residents at large?
So on this issue, I think obviously some great consideration needs to be given to the people who are right around there. But obviously, for the long term, if we do indeed have massive growth in this area and traffic does get more congested than it currently is, it could be possible that we could actually need to spend the massive amount of money to, pave across 3rd Street there for cars to get through. But at this point in time, we're not seeing, I don't think, the need for that. We have a lot of other things that I'd like to see money spent on. And as far as a pedestrian bridge goes, I fully support that. $70,000, I believe, is the cost. Part of that money has already been raised. I've talked to homeowners who live right around the creek there, and they're in support of a pedestrian and bicycle bridge. And so, yes, thank you.
All right, that's John Freeland. Now Dan Carscallen.
Well, I live in that neighborhood, and I've been in favor of that bridge getting put in. Well, since I moved into that neighborhood, it's just something that I still pick on Larry Hodge for not building it in the first place when they first put that subdivision in way back in the late 70s, early 80s. I don't think it would be as expensive as it can be if you go the federal funding route. There's ways to do it a little less expensive. I have experience with it at the highway district level with putting some bridges in that turned out pretty economical. It's still not cheap, but it is cheaper than it can be done if you use the federal funding. And I think it needs to be a mixed-use bridge. I think we need to continue to have access down there, especially for emergency. We have people that live on the same block of the street down there that live across the creek from each other, so that makes things a little difficult in emergency situations sometimes.
All right, that's Dan Carscallen. I've got another question here. This will go to Dan Carscallen first. Is the city planning on looking into building a joint law enforcement facility with the Latah County Sheriff's Department? And If not, what are some of the parameters of the plans for this possible new police station?
Yeah, the Joint Law Enforcement Center kind of died when the county commissioners basically came. We had a joint meeting with them. It was pretty early in my first term, I think, when we were talking pretty hot and heavy about doing it, and they came in and said we're just not interested in doing that. So we've moved forward with, since then, trying to come up with where to put a police station, and that's kind of what we're looking at right now. Is where should we put it? We do need to move it somewhere because the access to the current police station is basically one way, and that really isn't conducive to emergency response, and it's also not very accessible to handicapped folks. They got to come in the back door and find a way to get somebody to come let them in the back door. So people need to come pay their parking tickets somewhere, and if we got to have a place for them to park to do that, plus have all the parking for the emergency vehicles down there.
All right, that was Dan Carscallen, and now John Freeland.
Yes, there's a lot of parts to this, and I'll answer it as quickly as possible. My kind of grand vision for this whole thing is, I think if we were to have a new fairgrounds somewhere in the county just outside the city, and we're to bring in a rodeo and all sorts of other stuff, considering that Latah County has one of the highest amount of farms of all the counties surrounding us, and we don't have a rodeo, we don't have a fairgrounds that really is big enough for that purpose. I think if we were to have that and then use our current fairgrounds, expanding the ice rink, possibly putting in a joint sheriff/police station there. We've talked about, some of our seniors have brought up the need for senior center. There's a lot of people who want to see a new library. We have room on the fairgrounds property that we currently have for those buildings there. Obviously, I think we need to still have some sort of police, downtown, and the current location could still house part of some sort of force, even if they were all over on the east side, because downtown we obviously want to make sure that that area is well protected. But in the grand scheme of things, long term, that's kind of my vision. New fairgrounds, using the current fairgrounds to expand the ice rink, get a new sheriff/police station in there, possibly a senior center and library. And of course these things take time, but moving on, into the future. This is kind of my plan. Thank you.
All right, your minute's up, but we do have 2 minutes each for closing statements, and as we conclude this hour, so we'll shoot that over to Dan Carscallen first, and go ahead. You got up to 2 minutes.
Thanks, Lee, and thanks everybody for listening. I look forward to getting your vote and continuing to serve for the next 4 years. November 3rd is election day. I hope that I've done enough in the last 8 that you'd like to continue to keep me on for the next 4. And now that I got your attention, I want to talk about sudden cardiac arrest syndrome and keep the beat Moscow. I've used my bully pulpit here in the last few times. This is a project that my wife and a friend of hers has. They're trying to get automatic external defibrillators throughout the public spaces in Moscow. They've got some in place. They'd like to get a lot more. So if anybody could help with the funding of that, go to look for Keep the Beat Moscow on, just Google it or look for it on Facebook, and there's ways to donate to that to help move that project forward. And I've seen firsthand how this has worked for folks, and we brought a little boy back out there at the Advent School out on the Troy Highway because of they had one of these in place. So there's lives to be saved out there, and we want to keep saving them. So Keep the Beat Moscow on Facebook.
All right, that was Dan Carscallen, and John Freeland, your closing statement, up to 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you, everyone. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on here tonight and to answer some of your questions. Just something that wasn't quite brought up tonight was, I've been promoting myself as the pro-business and pro-growth candidate, and also as a young person. And a big part of getting more businesses, more growth in here, is seeing more students come in at the University of Idaho. And you have my promise that if I'm elected this next Tuesday, that's going to be one of the biggest things, because our economy here in Moscow is so majorly dependent on the university, and it's not something that we talk about enough. We need to get enrollment up by reducing tuition and coming up with more ways to attract students. And that's something that I'm going to heavily make sure that happens. I mean, you think about if you have 1,000 more students come in here, you have five, and they're each spending $400 or $500 a month. You know, every month that's $500,000. Then you throw in, you know, economic multiplier facts, and every, you know, you're talking millions of dollars that comes in by just bringing, you know, 1,000 more students in here. That's something that we really need to do, especially in a state where so many, only 1 out of every 10 kids in high school will end up graduating college. That's something that we really need to focus on. So I'm a pro-business, I'm a pro-growth candidate, I'm a young person, and I will work hard for you in every way possible. And I thank you so much for your time this evening.
All right, that was John Freeland, and so that concludes our candidates forums for this year.